Welcome to Depression Proof Your Life Live, a space for honest conversations about mental health, mental wellness, recovery, and resilience. Here, we explore how communication, environment, and mindset work together to move us from silence to strength. We talk with people who have faced real-life challenges and explore the practical systems and daily structures that help them rebuild their mental strength. I'm Marion Mills, and I created DPYL out of my own journey through mental illness, addiction, and recovery. These conversations are about breaking stigma, finding support, and reminding you that you are not alone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be viewing from. Welcome to Depression Proof Your Life Live. I have my guest today is Gillian Butler. It's very interesting because she is a voice actor, but we actually met each other on LinkedIn because we realized that we have very similar backgrounds. She has a background in nursing and I have a background in social work. So that's how we kind of connected. So Gillian, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you, Marion, for having me.
Yes.
So yes, I've been a nurse for over 15 years, but then decided to shift that career and started voiceover. And we'll talk about that when we get into it. But
Exactly.
I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I, have a different take on different backgrounds of life experiences. I, help with my mom who's elderly and just playing different roles within that space. So just different things about me that kind of accumulated and kind of drove me into voiceover.
Yeah.
But
and of course, being a caregiver is a huge, like that's a job in itself. That's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of times, and we can talk about this as well, but it's interesting because I think a lot of times people feel like, well, you have a background in nursing, so it's probably, pretty easy for you. And it's not, right? It's still a challenge.
It's a whole other field of dealing with, I have two different like age gaps that I'm dealing with. So that's a lot.
Exactly.
But as far as VO goes, I do a lot of audiobooks. I do a lot of why am I going blank? Audiobooks and just different realms of voiceovers.
But it's mainly in audiobooks.
Yeah, mainly audiobooks. I speak for a living.
Right, I know. And believe me, I tell people all the time. One day I had a guest, and before we came on, I said, she said, I'm nervous. I said, I am too. She said, you shouldn't be nervous. And I was like, why? I mean, I'm not used to being on camera, number one, right? And then so that's taking some getting used to, but I think, some of the best and most skilled actors even say, before they go on a show, do a show or whatever, that, there's a little bit of nervousness
there is.
that should be there, just because you want to do well. And, so we're in this together. So, believe me, I have made many speaking mistakes. I told someone one day, I said, the way that I actually speak on a normal basis, I have ADHD. So I have a lot of times my thoughts are moving faster than my mouth is. So I stammer a lot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, of course, when you hear me in voiceover, it's perfect, right? It's seamless. You would never know. But of course, when I'm like, all the, it's just kind of up and down all over the place, right? But of course, in voiceover, but again, that's why it's voice acting, because, we're acting. We're acting, whatever role that we need to play, we're playing it in that moment. But yeah, I'm really glad to have you on the show. Of course, we've been talking for quite some time. So definitely glad to have you on the show and, have some insight, because
again, just with your experience, definitely have a lot to share. So why don't you, let's start by telling us a little bit about the type of work that you did as a nurse and what led you to that profession.
So in my nursing field, I started out in medicine. Then I went into radiation oncology.
Oh, okay.
Then I changed over to OBGYN, and then I went into the surgical unit, and
Oh, wow.
then to the OR. So I have little nuggets of knowledge of all of these different specialties
Right.
that
I
I went
love
through.
that. I
Yeah,
love
and
that. Which one did you enjoy the most?
I definitely loved, like, I enjoyed radiation oncology. It
Hmm.
it was it was a short time that I did it because I had became a travel nurse and
Okay.
was like, okay, I want to do different stuff. I'm going to
Hmm.
utilize this time to do
Yeah.
different things. Um, and then I love the learning aspect of the OR. Like, you are always continuously learning something
Right.
new. Like,
Right.
there's
Yeah.
never a boring day.
Yeah.
So I took those two, and then of course OB, because you get to see babies. Why not?
Yes. Exactly. Right.
So those were my top three, I would
Right.
say. Um,
Wow. I love that. I think that was one of the other things that attracted me to social work. I like the fact that it's such a strong field, and I don't want to say necessary, but it's so vast that if you
yeah,
get bored, if you get burnt out, or whatever it is, if you can go in different areas, and very similar to nursing. Social workers can work with you from birth all the way to death, and same way with nursing. So
which
you
is
can work.
amazing.
Yeah, a social worker can is very versatile like that. So yeah, it's good to hear that you actually, and again, you don't do it anymore, right? Or do you still
No,
do
so
it
I've
from time to
I've
time?
been focusing on being a mom and voiceover.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
different different time in my life, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
But I didn't answer your second question,
Hmm.
which was what brought me to being a nurse.
Right. Hmm.
What stimulated me to become a nurse.
Yeah.
So this is a crazy story. It's kind of interesting because no one has ever really asked me, like,
Oh,
why did
okay.
you become a nurse?
Right.
And so I will take you back, way back. This was when I was like 17 years old.
Mm.
I had a classmate of mine. I remembered I was in band. I used to play the flute, and a classmate of mine turned around and looked at me, and she was like, "Why do you look yellow?" And
Oh,
I
wow.
looked at my skin, and my skin was very yellow at
Yeah.
that point. And being 17, I was sort of like naive, but also kind of mature at the same time.
Right.
And so I went home, and it just kind of stuck with me. And so I ended up calling my doctor, and I was like, "Can I, calling my doctor's office, can I get an appointment to
Right.
see my doctor?" So I ended up going to see my doctor at the time, and after I left my appointment, it was like literally like the next day. I got home from school, and my sister and we were about to go to the mall
Hmm.
because what
What
17-year-old
seems
like
exactly
the
doesn't
mall?
enjoy the mall, right?
So we're about to go to the mall, and my sister realizes she doesn't have enough gas. So she stops by the gas station, which happens to be like at the end of the street where I live, and my dad is working there.
Okay.
So we stop for gas, and I'm like all excited. I'm going to the mall. I'm gonna buy me a new outfit, whatever. My dad comes running out hysterically, and he's like, "Your doctor just called and said you need to go to the emergency room."
Wow.
I'm like, No, Dad. We're going to the mall. That's why we stopped for gas so that we could go to the mall.
Right.
And he's like, no.
I don't have time to go to no ER.
He's
Right.
like, he said, no, you're about to go into shock. Like,
Wow.
you need to go to the emergency room. And so me being naive that I am at that age, I'm like, all right, let me go home. Let me gather my things, whatever I need, and then eat, and then do whatever I have to do, and then go to.
Still no urgency, right?
No urgency,
right? Yeah.
17-year-old mental mind. No,
Right.
No urgency. So I get to the emergency room and they're like, we were waiting for you. You're going to go up and get admitted. So I went and I got admitted. And then my doctor comes and looks at me and he looks like he just saw a ghost.
Really?
And he's like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I'm fine. I don't see what the big deal is right now. And he's like, yeah, I got your labs back and your hemoglobin is like 2.5. And I'm like, I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean to me?
What does that mean to me? And then he's like, well, a normal person's is like above 11. So yeah, that's really scary. And I'm like, being naive that I am, I'm like, it's not scary to me. I'm here. I'm talking to you. I feel perfectly fine. We were about to go to the mall when you called and interrupted my mall venture.
I can't get that time back, Doc. Okay.
Yeah, no. No, not at all. So so I ended up getting admitted. I had to get blood transfusion, like all of this stuff. Wow. And while I was there, it turned out like a classmate of mine, her mom was my nurse. And she just took such good care of me.
Yeah.
And I remember that to this day.
Yeah.
I wanted to be that person in that place for somebody who just didn't even realize what was going on with her.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then my curiosity was sparked with, well, what does that mean, my hemoglobin? Like, what's going on with that? Like, what does that picture look like?
Before,
I've never even had this conversation. I don't know what that is. I'm 17 years old. That means nothing to me. So looking back to that period and that event that happened in my life, I was like, number one, I was a patient first.
Yeah.
And number two, I saw that role of the nurse and how it impacted me being a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
And my curiosity of what does that laboratory world look like? What does this mean physically? And why was I not presenting in the manner that, my doctor was so concerned about?
Right. What was the urgency? And again,
why was it urgent to him, but I seemed fine?
But I felt fine. Right. And I like the fact that you are pointing that out, because I think a lot of people that can be a slippery slope for some people. It's like, I felt completely fine. So and at the same time, very scary, because it's like, they say these are the symptoms that you're supposed to look for, right? If you're having, a heart attack, stroke, these are the things you look for. If you're not experiencing that, I go about my day. I go to the mall. I go get gas. That's a real conversation. Wow. So I want to unpack a couple of different things.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that you and I talk about is, I'm going to kind of segue into the fact that your sister needed gas.
Yeah.
That was no accident.
No. I thought that was a whole design for me and a purpose for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, Because
And that
it was
my dad was
God
there.
yes, exactly. God
That
worked it out that you needed that she needed gas in
yes,
that moment for
in
your
that
dad to
moment.
be able to tell you, hey.
Yeah. And just the fact that, like, why didn't my doctor call the house? He called my
Ooh, that's a
dad.
good I just got chills. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And at that moment, my dad could have missed that phone call, but he went into, the space where the register is,
Right. Like
and
again,
the phone rang at the
mhm,
same time.
look at
Like,
that.
God had a purpose for me.
Yes, yes. Yeah, definitely.
I saw that bigger picture.
You
Yeah.
know, last my guest last week was talking about she's a death doula, and she
Oh,
was talking about you know the importance and her interest in it was uh, just to kind of sum it up, it was several different things that interest her, but one of the main things that interest her about it is the fact that taking the shock or not talking about it, because again, death is a part of life, but again,
right.
that's not a subject that people are always comfortable with and even don't even want to talk about.
Exactly.
But it's very interesting because that very well could have been the case. You go to the mall and
And
and the
that would have
first
been it.
question, because she said that's another thing that she learned, that a lot of times people ask the question, oh, I didn't know that they had been sick. Sometimes, like you said, I I wasn't sick. I just went to the mall and passed out. I woke up in the hospital.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I think that a lot of people have experienced that. Just watching the news, you hear of someone that was a healthy athlete, not expecting them to have,
Any
a
issues?
heart problem, any
Mhm.
issues. Or young people having strokes. I don't know if you heard that. Recently, I saw on the news that it's a high rate of young people under the age of 20
Wow.
having stroke. Yeah, that's scary, right? Like,
That
just
is.
not
Yeah.
something that you would even expect, or to even look out for.
Yeah.
um
Absolutely. Like, it's scary. Yeah.
how I know you called out a lot of different areas in nursing that you were in. What area did you actually start in, and why did you select that one to be your first?
So I actually did medicine.
Okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just because it just gave me a broader view, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to really get a strong foundation before
Yes. Mm-hmm.
merging into the different specialties,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt that, you know, as long as I have the knowledge of where to begin, I should
Mm-hmm.
be fine with whatever comes my way. And I saw that later on, like,
Yeah.
in other specialties, like, I
Yeah.
knew what to do because I
Mm-hmm.
had that
Because you
foundation.
had that foundation. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I wonder how many I wonder how many people, probably not that many, actually think that deeply into it. Like, okay, what area should I go into that's going to give me a foundation? And again, that's why you were able to go in so many other different areas, because you had
Yeah,
that foundation. So yeah,
I was
and
comfortable.
I don't think everyone that is a nurse, if they haven't had certain experiences, they might not be able to go into certain areas that you may have gone into. So,
Mhm.
um, so of course, one of the other conversations that you and I had were a lot of the pressures that actually come with caring for, being in a caring field like nursing, like social work. How did that affect you mentally and emotionally? Where, of course, there are times that you need a break physically, mentally, but you can't because you have to take care of this patient.
Yeah.
How did that affect you, and how did you deal with it?
I don't think you realize it at first,
Yeah, good point.
and I didn't realize it at first. When
Yeah. Mhm.
you start out, you are in this excited mode
Yeah.
where you're like, I will work 60 hours a week.
Right.
I will do whatever
I
because
have the heart for it, right? Like,
I have the heart for it, I
yeah.
have the passion for it, I have,
Mm-hmm.
the energy for it,
Mm-hmm.
I have all of this stuff going through my mind because I am
Mm-hmm.
so excited. I passed my boards, I finally made it to this
I'm
point.
here, right? I'm ready for it.
So
Yeah.
you're not paying attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
You are paying attention to, how am I going to tackle this? Because you have so many different things that you have to think about within your day of being in that role of a nurse. So you're not thinking about, okay, do I need a mental break? Do I need to step away? Do I need to do that? So initially, I would say at first, when I noticed that I was starting to get a little irritated, that was like my cue, take a vacation.
Okay.
Okay. Go somewhere.
Yeah.
Just step away.
Yes.
So that was sort of like how I would deal with it. I would say, okay, I work 3 months. I feel a little, exhausted. Let me take a quick vacation somewhere and go. And I'm sure that you can ask a lot of nurses. They take vacations on a rolling cycle.
Yeah.
Because you got to step away.
Yeah.
So initially that was me dealing with things mentally, was removing myself and going on a vacation. That vacation for a week was sort of like my reset.
A reset. Yeah.
And then that would bring me back into the crazy world of nursing.
Right. Yeah.
And so I did that for a while. Yeah. That was my way of dealing with.
And when did you realize that it was actually like taking a mental toll on you, that these mini vacations or these breaks, you needed them sooner,
more frequently?
Right. More frequently. And that the reset still wasn't giving you what you needed in order to go back. But of course it was time to go back. So you had to.
Yeah. So
I guess, like, what were the signs that you actually had,
The resets were like, sort of like, so when you go on vacation and you're just kind of like, oh man, I got to go back.
Yeah.
Oh man, I got to go back.
Yeah.
That was when it was starting to kick in. Like, it was like why can't I stay here longer or do this longer?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting more detail. But again, I appreciate, because it's an honest answer. Like when you're dreading the very thing that you love to do, right?
Yeah, that was like kind of like the early sign. Like, I got to go back.
Yeah.
How am I going to deal with going back? And then when you get back, you're like, when can I leave again?
Right. Yeah.
Like you're looking forward to the next opportunity. But you got to wait because you don't have enough time.
You got to build that,
you got to rebuild the time again. Yeah. And how long is that going to be?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Is that one of the things, or one of the reasons why you, it's like, okay, I'm getting burnout from this area of nursing, so let me try another area.
So I had a good nursing friend who, her advice to me, and it kind of fell into place with this. It wasn't necessarily what I used, but her advice to me was, if you start getting comfortable, you need to move on.
Okay.
But it wasn't like me getting comfortable. It was more of like me getting irritated. You need to move on. Okay. Like this is starting to get to you.
Yes.
So it's time to continue. It was sort of like, for me mentally, it was like, continue to make sure that you're getting that spark, that spark of curiosity that you always, that brought you into this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So that curiosity is no longer there because you've built on what you can here. So you got to move on. Let's move on to something else that will spark you more curiosity. So that was the next step. That was the next move. Go into something different.
I wish more people did that, really took the time to be aware of themselves. And like you said, I realized I was irritated. I know during the time that I was working, I was on the phone with my brother one day and I was talking to someone. He said, "You sound irritated." He said, like, "I don't know if you hear how you're talking to that person, but you sound irritated." And I was like, wow. you know what, I do, and I am, I'm just like on edge,
Yep.
But yeah, and I remember very early on in my career, I used to hear, people that had seasoned people had been, in social work 15, 20 years, and they just seemed angry and just frustrated. And I remember telling them, I was like, first of all, we work for a huge agency. If you're frustrated and not happy here anymore, you
Mhm.
can go to so many other areas, go to another department,
Right.
go to, and if you have, and because of course everyone that works for social services doesn't necessarily have a degree in social work. I said, but you can branch out to, you work for the state, so go to some other area. But a lot of times people get complacent, they get comfortable, and they, even though they know they don't have the passion for it anymore, they'll still continue to show up, be frustrated, be very jaded
Mhm.
in their work, and sharing that mindset with other people. So yeah, I do. I wish a lot of other people, and of course, I certainly understand sometimes people um, don't have the luxury, right,
Right.
of necessarily being able to move around. But can you speak to, if it was different, what that might have looked like, how it kind of spilled over into your everyday life, and in your personal life?
So at that point, like you said, I had the luxury of I was by myself.
Yes.
I
Okay.
didn't have a family at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the luxury of knowing, like, okay, just like you described, I encountered a lot of people who were senior nurses
Mm-hmm.
who I was I was sort of getting that feel that they had been there very long.
Yeah.
They knew the routine.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want that routine disrupted.
Right.
And whenever it was, that would create friction.
Yes.
And you would be the person just happened to be walking by and that friction would hit you.
Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I started to recognize that very early in my
Okay.
career that, like, okay, this is becoming even more like intense, like, and now it's being angled towards me, and
Mm,
if I continue to stay here, then I'm probably going to be like that.
like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was also like another sign, a red flag for me, like, okay, do I want to
I don't want to
I
end
don't
up
wanna
like that,
be
right?
like
Yeah,
that.
I don't want to be
I
like
don't
that.
wanna
Yeah.
continue this like that. So I'm
Yeah.
not gonna stay here to create that within myself. So that was sort of also my escape route. It was
Okay.
like, okay, let me move on. That's my escape. And I had nothing to hold me or
Holds you
tie
to,
me
yeah.
down, so
Mhm.
I had that option. I had that luxury.
Right.
And I know not a lot of people do because once you settle down, like, that's hard to do.
Right. Well,
Um,
something even as simple as, I was having a conversation with one of my siblings, and I was, asking them about, different things. And I was like, well, and they were like, I can't really do that because, I got to think about my insurance. I'm not
right.
necessarily concerned about myself, but, my children, their insurance may be affected. And I don't want to disrupt that because, the doctor, all the things that I don't have to
Obvious.
think about,
Yeah,
right? So yeah, and something like insurance, I understand it somewhat, but I don't really have a concept. I don't really understand all the ins and outs of insurance because I go to the VA for everything. And
right.
because of that, getting a referral or not being approved because it's not in the network. I understand that, but again, it's not something that I think of first.
Mhm.
Like, most people, that actually have to deal with, insurance and being approved and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
a quick question.
Mhm.
What do you remember how early in your career that happened? That you realized that was happening, and if you do, did you ever feel guilty for like, gosh, I shouldn't be feeling this way, 3 years in, 2 years in, or whatever it may have been. Did you ever
I
have that?
did, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was 3 years in. It was
It's just
literally
funny that I said, because I asked the question because I know I struggled with that. It was just like,
yeah, yeah, I
how am I
felt
dealing with talking to all these people that have been in it 10, 15 years, and here I am 3 years in, and I'm like, whew, I don't know how much
Yeah,
more I can do this.
there was major guilt about that because I was
Mhm.
like, I kind of feel like, like you're pulling to like say, well, longevity, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I should stay with
Yeah.
this job because, like they were like the open opportunity for me, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and I should show maybe that loyalty to it.
Yes. Mhm.
So there was that sort of guilt, like, oh, maybe I should stay. But then it was like, no, but are you gonna want to deal with me in a few
Right.
years when I just like don't want to be here?
Right.
And that's another thing. Like I noticed I was
Mhm.
getting that sense of like there were people that would show up that just seemed like they didn't want to be there.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then, you're trying to be there in that present moment, and that is just clashing with you.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
and that happened quite frequently,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, of course, this wasn't one of the questions. I just thought about it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, if you have, and if you feel comfortable sharing? What are your thoughts on, the change with nursing, where you no longer have to have a degree or something? Some kind of controversy about that.
Oh, I haven't heard much about that, but I noticed like there was a like an influx of people coming from other degrees,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
and being accelerated into the nursing field. And
Right.
and I thought about that because I was like, man, I worked my butt off,
Yeah.
you know, took the time, went through everything,
Yeah.
went through the process, and here's someone who just kind of came in like, took like
Off of
18
them
months
having a
or
degree in another
something.
area. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Without like really having to spend that time like working. Like I had worked in a nursing home before I got
Mhm.
got into nursing profession.
Right.
So like sort of like doing that, like working through, seeing what that looks like,
Yeah.
knowing what that looks like, what it
What
entails.
it entails. Yeah.
And just having somebody else being like, yeah, this is a good salary. I'm just gonna switch over because my
Exactly.
my profession isn't really giving me the salary
Yeah.
that I want. So yeah, that was a little tough to see.
Yeah.
Um n- and and I saw the difference. And you
Mm.
do see the
Like in
difference
the
with that.
quality of work. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in the care
Yeah.
too.
In the care. Yeah.
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 So, but I didn't know about the no degree.
Yeah.
That is
Some
interesting.
type of, and again, it was just a snippet that I saw, where, it's not considered a profession, so you don't,
Oh, yeah, so the recent there was they took nursing out as a professional profession. Um, and I don't agree with that. We are
yeah.
we are very professional.
Hmm.
We are considered we are saving lives.
Yeah.
If that is not considered serious,
Yeah.
I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Like, that is somebody's life in your hands,
Hmm.
whether they're well or whether they're extremely sick. Like that is something that is very serious.
Yeah.
So that should not be taken out of the concept of, oh, well, we don't consider you this.
Like any old, Joe Blow, as we used to say back in the
Yeah,
day, can
no,
actually do this. No, this is,
right.
yeah.
No, this is years of knowledge. This is critical thinking that you have to put
Hmm.
into action,
Yeah.
and knowing exactly what to do if something happens to someone. No, that is not like I can't pull somebody out of the streets and say, go be a nurse. Like
Exactly.
it just doesn't work. No.
Yeah. Yeah. That you said something that I used to say as a CPS worker. I never looked at, when the call comes in, comes into the hotline provides, takes down the information and they assign a case.
Mhm.
And, so we have this file. And
Mhm.
I used to always say, I was like, this is not just a file. This is not just a case to me. This is somebody's life. These are the decisions that you're making are going to affect people,
Mhm.
short term or long term. They're going to affect people. So I'm going to take the time that I need and that they need me to take in order to understand what's really going on. Because everything that's going on, I can guarantee you is not in this file, right?
Right.
Is not in this case, so yes. And again, I can appreciate what you're saying about, understanding and knowing, because you have to, I think as a social worker and as a nurse, and of course there are other fields that may do the same thing, but I believe that those are two professions that you have to be able to read unspoken cues, when even if a client or a patient is not being straightforward with you, or
Right.
being honest, or maybe they're not even aware of it themselves. It's
Mhm.
up to us as the professional to, can I, to ask the right questions, like you said, that critical thinking.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they're not saying anything, but I can see this, and this. It's been my experience. So yeah, all of those different things are extremely important and not to be played with at all.
Exactly. Yep.
So what action, if any, did you finally have to take to protect your mental health? Or did changing the field of expertise, did that actually help?
So, yeah, that's a great question, but no. I mean, you're thinking, "Okay, I'm going into something else. This is gonna spark my curiosity. This is
Right,
gonna give me a little bit more knowledge of
right.
something new."
Mm-hmm.
But then that comes with its own weight.
Yeah.
Like, now you're seeing even sicker patients. You're seeing
Okay.
patients that are dealing with life challenges
Yeah.
that you can't even imagine
Yeah.
what is going on in their world, in their thoughts. And all you can do is really try to I can't
Empathize with
speak,
them. Mm-hmm.
empathize
Mm-hmm.
with them.
Yeah.
And
And that
but
alone is taking a
an
mental,
even
emotional, physical toll.
heavier
Yeah. Yeah.
toll on you. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because then you're like, "Oh man, if if I'm in this, if I am getting even deeper and deeper in this,
Right.
then now that is draining me emotionally."
Yeah.
So that was like sort of like the next thing. Oh man, this is starting to really drain on me
Right. Yeah.
because now I'm taking on even a heavier load because
Yeah.
these are even more sicker patients.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, even the possibility of someone passing, that
Yeah, or yeah, seeing that person today and then realizing that they're no longer here.
yeah.
Oh, that was emotionally heavy. That
Yeah.
was like you are leaving work crying.
Yeah.
You are going home and in tears, remembering that person,
Yeah.
remembering that connection.
Yeah. I'll never forget my internship at a nursing home. It was a nursing home / rehabilitation center. One
Mhm.
wing was the nursing home, and I would never forget. And I still think of, matter of fact, I was thinking about that today when I was out. I had a patient, and again, at the time, I was doing mini mentals. I'm sure you may be familiar with mini mentals, where the social worker was in charge of coming in, asking the series of questions, just to see where the patient was mentally, asking them, "Hey, I'm going to call out these 4 objects. Remember, we're going to revisit this, see if you can recall it. You ask a few more questions, go back. It's just different things like that. That was also where I learned that confusion a lot of times, a social worker actually, Miss Smith seems really confused, and she wasn't as confused yesterday. And
Mhm.
and it's possible that maybe Miss Smith had a UTI. I
Yeah.
remember the social worker and the nurse, actually having a really good bond and really communicating. But I'll never forget. I was doing a minute, and this lady was not responding to anything. And again, I was still very new, in my internship, and I was like, "How? What do we do? What do you do when you have a patient that is not responsive? You still go through, ask the questions, and you just document what it is."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Ma'am," I was like, "Oh, she can't really hear me," and blah blah blah, and I was like, "All right, I'll see you tomorrow." Before I even got out of the hall, code blue in room,
Ah.
and it would and it's like I had a hard time forgiving myself because
Mhm.
I felt like I should have known that that was a sign of her transition, because she was just looking into, like, her eyes were fixed, just looking into the distance. And I was like, I could have said a prayer. I could have
Mm.
said something, just did something, just been there with her. If I had known what was happening. But again, for me, being very new, and it was like, okay, I'm supposed to be, documenting, and she's not saying anything.
Right.
If I had realized and understood what was happening, I would have taken the time to not necessarily go through all of those, but to really just be there, with her, whether, like I said, whether it was saying a prayer, just holding her hand and having, while she was transitioning. And again, of course I did not know that's what was going on, but even if I didn't know that that's what was going on, I just wish that I had uh, done a little bit more just to speak to her, and not necessarily just, okay, okay, she's not saying, all right, I'll be back tomorrow, and go
Yeah.
on, and like I said, that still lives with me, that I wish I would have taken that extra time. And I think that was the one thing that was so moving, that even throughout my social work career, I got in trouble a lot of times for doing just that. Like, you spending too much time with the client, you have to move on, you
Mm.
have to get on to the next one. I'm like, okay,
No.
but they I could tell they needed somebody to talk to. Like,
Right.
so yeah, it was hard to go through that. But at the same time, I think it was something that I needed to go through to make sure that I did not rush through someone's, my time with a person.
Well, I learned that lesson as well the hard
Mm,
way,
uh-huh.
because I remembered I had, told a family member after a patient had had a surgery done and they had came back up, they had called and they were like, you know, "Should I come in?" And naive carried over into
Yeah.
nursing.
Hmm.
Um, I was like, "No, no, no, no. You're fine. Go home, they had came to visit. "Go home, get some
Mm,
rest. They'll be here tomorrow."
yeah.
How do I know that?
Mm,
I didn't know that. And yeah, just like you said, a code.
yeah.
And then I couldn't take back my words.
Yeah.
I couldn't take back that moment for that family member that I sent home and said, "Yeah, that person's gonna be fine."
Hmm.
That stuck with me a
Yeah.
very long time,
Yeah.
to even to today.
Yeah.
I I would never, after that moment, make that decision for that person.
Yeah. Yeah. I when I watch different shows, like, for example, top of my head, I'm thinking of is like Chicago Med. When I watch
Mhm.
different shows like that, when I hear, when I see different interactions, I'm like, that's not realistic,
Yeah.
or that's not, uh, um, how that should have been that could have been handled, just kind of analyzing and kind of picking it apart. But that is one thing that I've definitely heard uh, and seen on screen, where they actually will tell me, like, you can't guarantee that. You can't
No.
tell. Don't get used to telling a patient, yes, you'll be fine. We have to be honest with them about, like, matter of fact, I think I was actually, just kind of doing whatever I was doing as the show was on. So I heard it going on, but as I was moving through, and I remember talking to the TV and I kind of backed up. I was like, that wouldn't happen. Because,
No.
So it was a lady, the lady found out, she thought that she had one thing, come to find out she had something else. And they were like, unfortunately, there is not a cure, but research. And she said, well, research, okay. And they were like, yeah, it takes money, for research, and over time, you have to test. And she was like, well, what if I donate money? And they were like, ma'am, the money for research is considerable. And she was like, $110 million. Would that help? And I was like, the answer would be no. Like, they couldn't, in that moment, they cannot say yes. I said, because the fact of the matter is, no matter how much money you give and pour into it, it's still not going to change the situation. That all the money that you give, it's still that may help someone else in the future. But as far as helping you in your current situation, it's still the same. So, and later on, when I came back in, they were actually talking to the director, and they were like, we have to be realistic with her. We're not going to take her money, because that's going to give her hope that, okay, they can save me. They can help me. It was like, and I was like, exactly. I was like, I'm glad that that's how it played out. So, but yeah, what was the tipping point, I guess, for you when you realized, or was it a tipping point of going from nursing to voiceover? Was it a decision that you had to make, or was it a nice, smooth transition?
I think that was a realization of, remember when I said, before, I was sort of just going from one specialty to another because I had the luxury of that.
Right.
The period before becoming or doing voiceover was we had COVID. We went through this intense time of stress.
Yeah.
And that was a shifting in my mental thinking at that point of what is more important to me. Is it my job or is it my family?
Yeah.
And the answer was clear to me. That was my family.
Yeah.
I was pregnant during COVID.
Oh, that's scary. Yeah.
I was at the front lines during COVID. That was, I can't even begin to tell you what mental, emotional,
like, is it, I mean, like,
coming home. I can give you a picture of like coming home when we didn't know what the initial period of
how it spread,
COVID and how it spread. Like, you had to leave your clothes outside or just come home and throw it into the washer because you just didn't know where this contamination was and how this was being spread. That was what I was going through. And then having to go into that place where you don't know if you're going to come out because so many people were getting sick.
Yeah.
And
the other half of the reality is not only getting sick, but people were dying. Like, at enormous rates. So it just
like numbers upon numbers upon numbers. Yeah. And you're like, I'm having a baby and I don't know what this is going to look like tomorrow.
Were you ever concerned, I feel like I already know the answer, but I do my best not to assume. That's why it's better to ask. Were you ever concerned that, how, again, it's almost like shingles. I was very surprised. I'll never forget when I was working in a nursing home, a client had shingles and a nurse was about to come in and they were like, no, she can't come in. She's pregnant. I was like, again, I was just kind of standing by, observing this. And I later on asked them, I was like, why couldn't she go in the room? Like, shingles is extremely contagious. Like, and I was like, it could be spread. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, I didn't realize. I never knew that. So were you ever concerned that and me breathing in this air, me helping this person, me just being in this facility, could my baby end up getting COVID? And even if, because of course sometimes a mother may be, I guess, asymptomatic, like you might not have symptoms, but the baby can, or vice versa. So were you ever concerned about that?
I think my shield was my faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 I think and I will say this, like, I literally went to my Bible.
Yeah.
I would say my psalm every
Mm-hmm.
time before I had to go in.
Yes.
And that was my shield.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I would
Mm.
have been a mental wreck.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Like, yeah. Like
That was my
it's like
shield.
you literally prayed for a covering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my
Yeah.
shield. And he carried
Yeah.
me through.
Mm.
In that whole entire period. And that was from the peak of
Yeah.
COVID, when everything was starting to shut down and everything
Right.
was going. I stayed the entire time
Mm.
because I trusted that.
Mm.
That was my shield.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
Mm.
in that aspect, I was covered. In my mind, I
Yeah.
was like, I'm covered. I know.
God's not God. God didn't bring me here in this moment, in this time, for me to just to die, or to yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm glad that you said that. And it's extremely powerful. And I think that's a great example of just how faith can work, or faith does work, because it's like God carrying you like this allowed you to be able to do what you needed to do for your patients, where you
Mhm.
weren't, because again, because of the stress, the unknown, the
Yeah.
things
We
changing
didn't
every
know.
day. Yeah,
And all
the
you saw was death.
running out of PPE. Because I know
Yeah.
for with of course, because CPS was essential. We were still open. We were still working. You work. Because a lot of times, if I was outside with a client,
Mhm.
because again, you didn't want to go inside their house. Someone in the house has COVID, and it's like, okay, well, if someone, and again, there were so many different situations, going to people's homes. It's like, okay, I'm breathing the same air and again, you had a mask on, but it's like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
breathing the same air that they're breathing, like, and then sometimes you would be talking to someone. I remember, I'll never forget, I was outside talking to a client, outside of the home, and didn't have to go in because it was just a follow-up.
Mhm.
And I didn't have a mask on because I'm like, we're outside.
Yeah.
And at the end, he was like, "Yeah, me and the kids had COVID." I was like, "Ah!" I was like, and again, it's just one of those situations. My first thought was, "Oh my God, did I stand far enough away from them, even though we were outside?" Just all of those different things. Just being on edge. But yeah, so but that's a blessing that you had your faith and still have your faith.
Yeah.
To be able, where you could actually focus on what you needed to focus on, and not being in the back of your mind, I don't know how this guy, just being
Yeah,
afraid,
no.
just being
Right.
afraid to move the way you needed to move,
And a perfect example of that was, and at that point I was in the OR. I remembered I had a patient that they had to do a spinal tap on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's COVID. Nobody wants to get close to anybody.
Right.
And I remembered I went and I stood, and literally, like, their face was like
Right. I was about to say, yeah,
right
because the
here,
nurse, yeah, mm-hmm,
because I had to hold them
hold them.
in
Mm-hmm.
place. And
Right.
I remembered them saying, "Aren't you scared?" And I said,
Mm.
"No." I said, "I'm here to keep you safe."
Wow.
And they said, you must have strong faith.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, I,
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That is a prime example of letting your light shine. Like, it's like they saw it on you, right? They saw
I
it
had
on
to
you
be
and in
strong
you.
for that person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when no one else wanted to be in that place, in that position,
Mm-hmm.
I stepped up and I wasn't concerned.
Yeah.
Because as I had mentioned to you, I had already got my shield on.
That's right. Yeah.
Everybody had
Walked in with your
PPEs.
armor on. Yeah.
Everybody had their PPEs.
Come
My
on now.
PPE
Yes.
was my shield
It was prayer and faith, right?
and faith. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In faith.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Wow.
was my PPE.
You had, you had added protection. Like you said, you had your PPE. This is what but I still have
Because
that added protection.
I will honestly tell you, I never trusted the PPEs that they gave us.
Like, Lord, I'm gonna need you to stand in. I'm gonna need you to stand in the balance right now, because this PPE, I don't know.
I
This
kept seeing
flimsy
people
thing, what is
getting
this
sick.
protecting me from?
Yeah, I kept seeing people I was working with was getting sick one by one, and I'm like, okay, we are all wearing the same PPE, so I was like, I don't even trust this, but I know
that. Like,
I know where my shield is.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that. Like, I ain't never trusted anyway. But you bring up a good point. Everyone that you were working with was wearing the PPE, and some of them were still getting sick. So it's like, what is this PPE really protecting us
working?
From?
Yeah,
working, right. What's really working? And I don't want to be too long on the whole COVID thing, but I know one of the other things that I was mindful of is I was very protective, because I really do believe in, treating others the way I want to be treated. I'm really, it's really big for me. And with that, I was very mindful of how I spent my time away from work. I saw, different things where a lot of times people were being very careless, being in large groups of people and then coming back. And it's like, you're because of the type of work that you do, or the fact that that you're still around other people. If the majority of society is not being mindful of, okay, I need to wear a mask, I need to stay, so many feet away, and then you're going into an environment where people are supposed to trust that you have not only done what you need to do when you're in this facility, but also, that you're being mindful when you're off, also to make sure that you're, I'm fine at work, but then I'm careless away from work. I was always mindful of that. And I'm assuming, of course, because you have a family, that you were also just very protective and mindful of your moves, even away from the hospital.
Yeah, that was, and like I said, like in that present time, I was pregnant, so. I wasn't trying to be in the crowds. I remembered hearing on the news there were like people having their own clubs. Like,
right. Yeah. I remember hearing that too. Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking?
What are you doing? Yeah. What are we doing right now?
Yeah. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was my going out was to work, and then I came back. I made sure that I was being as sterile in my home.
Right.
Because I have my husband, I didn't want to bring anything back into my home from that. So yeah, I was very cautious about that. Yeah. And I to this day never understood why people thought it was a good idea to make their own clubs. But yeah, I was very, very cautious about that.
Right.
Making sure that I wasn't putting myself or jeopardizing my family in any way.
Yeah. What do you wish more people understood about the mental challenges that nurses actually face and that they carry every day?
I wish they knew that, we are humans too. Yeah. It's hard to just kind of you know, experience a patient dying and then just be like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
back to being happy and
Hmm.
everything. That takes a toll.
Yeah.
And we, we are humans. Like we also need the same support as someone who
Mm.
is in grieving,
Yeah.
who is experiencing that, because we may not have experienced it in that necessarily in that closeness of knowing who that person was
Right.
deeply,
Hmm.
but we being in that position in that moment and having to experience that person's death, we're also taking that on as
Yeah.
well.
You touched on something there, as far as, you needing, what's being needed. Was there something in place, in any level of nursing that you were in, especially, oh, you already know what I'm going to say, huh? Yeah. What I found very interesting about social work, and again, I spent the majority of my time in CPS. Absolutely loved what I did. Wish I could continue, but mentally, I just couldn't keep doing it.
Mhm.
But there were horrible cases of situations with children,
Mhm.
being abused to the point of just unimaginable, right? Um, and sometimes there was no, it was like, all right, you got another case that came in. It's like,
Yeah.
can
Uh,
I can I literally deal with what I just saw? Like we had to, see the autopsies, or we had to see the autopsy, or just, and again, just because when you're working with children, there's uh, uh, just an added weight, I guess. Is the word, weight that you actually carry, knowing that
mhm.
they're vulnerable, and someone has harmed them in some way. uh, there was a lot of times that there weren't things in place for you to really process. And then sometimes, unfortunately, when they did consider, let's debrief, and it was like, "Hi, you sure you okay, you good?"
Mm.
It's like yeah, it was a lot more was needed. So nursing, there was nothing to actually uh
There wasn't, it, to be honest with you, I didn't really even have that position of debriefing until later on, like
mm,
until years later on.
yeah.
Where, and even that, like, I think they were still sort of kind of working through how to kind of help us.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't any structure to it. It was sort of like, there's a therapy dog. The
Yeah.
therapy dog
Mhm.
can come in and,
Right.
you know, um, or you kind of just sat there quietly and kind of reflected. But there wasn't like a structure, an outline as to say,
Mhm.
like, if this is really taking a toll on you, can we have somebody for you to speak to? It was sort of most of that you had to navigate on your own,
Yeah.
which I felt like I wish that they had something in place
Right.
to support nurses more
Mhm.
that needed it in that moment,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was in that moment, like,
Mhm.
you had to go, you're leaving work, you're heading home, and now you're bringing that
Mhm.
at home because
Yeah.
it was never dealt with
It was never dealt with. Yeah.
in that moment.
And that also just speaks to burnout as well.
Mhm,
Not being able to process, and in a healthy way, and not brushing it under the rug, literally, like you said, sitting with it, processing it, allowing you time to like you. I love how you said it's literally a grieving
mhm,
for the professional as well.
yeah,
um and and I certainly, there's I wish that there was something. And I know Depression Proof Your Life, we do have I've created something for organizations for burnout, but again, like you said, to actually create something for in that moment is extremely important, and different from a training of how organizations can prevent burnout, support their staff, because I think that that's extremely important. But you bring up a very good point of how to actually be there for a professional that has experienced a lot. And we're talking nurses, social workers, um, police officers, firemen, all of those frontline people
EMTs,
that
yeah.
actually see,
Mhm.
and again, they're in the midst of them seeing death or destruction and uh, all the things in between. They're still having to fight the fire. They're still having to protect, do all of these different things. And again, because like you said, the um, it's not what's the word? The adrenaline, I guess, the adrenaline that you're feeling in that moment, it's very difficult to actually deal with what you've seen. You have to. There's some time that you have to actually step away from it in order for you to actually process it. Because I know, just even mentally for me, there are things that I process later. Like I'm gonna be honest, even in social work, I mean, even in voiceover, there were things that a coach may have taught me. And again, maybe it's just how I learned, but there were different things that I did not understand the concept of what they were saying until I was kind of away from it. And it's like kind of taking it all in and then being away from it, where I'm not actually in a learning type of mode. It's like sometimes I would be outside in my yard and it would just hit me like, oh, that's how those dots connect. That's what they were talking about.
Yeah.
But in that moment, when I'm standing in this coaching session, I was like, like, do you understand what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. I can't say that I really understand it, just yet, but I know that I will, and it's the same way with after seeing something devastating, there has to be some type of separation between actually seeing what you've seen, allowing a person to process it in their own time, in their own way, because you can't try to help someone like, okay, in the midst of being in the fire, so to speak, and trying to, help them through it. It's like, just do this. It's like, because right now my mind is on making sure that everyone gets out of this safely, making sure that this, but it's like now, wow, what did I just experience? What did I just see?
Yeah.
What
And
did I just hear?
it's in that time period
Mm-hmm.
when you really need like
That's right.
counseling, or you really need someone to speak to,
Yeah.
that it's that gap that no one is there. Like, this is the aftermath, and it's sort of like, just pick yourself up and continue.
All right. Well, the day's done. Have a good one. It's like,
yeah.
And because again, it's now that the dust has settled, as they say, that's when it's going to hit you. And and I'm a firm believer for people getting out of the military. I think it's extremely important. And again, I've been out for many years, and they may have changed it, but I think something extremely important is that it's mandatory that people get counseling after getting out of the military, because a lot of times, as we're talking about, I'm good. I went into battle, or this may have been my experience, because it's not just for people that actually saw combat. This is just having that, making sure that the way that you came into the military, that as much as closely as possible, that you're actually coming out still whole. And there's, because if there is something that happened to you in the military, that it can actually be addressed, and it's not that you actually have to go home, sit in silence, deal with that hurt, that pain, that guilt, that whatever, all the different things that come with this happened to me, and I have nobody. Like I'm just out on
Mhm.
my own, so that's extremely important and extremely necessary,
Yeah.
but yeah. um so what would you say to someone who is actually the professional, who's actually struggling in silence? What would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
I would definitely say you're not alone.
Yeah.
Uh, there are many of us who experience the same thing. But I would say to definitely not just kind of put it on the back burner because it will catch up,
Hmm.
and if it doesn't catch up with you in, the emotional aspects of it where, y it all builds up and then now you're trying to deal with it all, it catches up in different ways.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen people turn to drinking to deal
Hmm.
with it, to drugs, to
Yeah.
whatever other behavior,
Hmm.
to when it was just this underlying thing that could have been dealt with
Yeah.
that was never dealt with.
Hmm.
And then it just spirals out of control.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely like be an advocate too for others, not just
Hmm.
yourself. Like, obviously, I saw a lot of things around me. I saw a lot of burnout around me
Yeah.
that I wish I could have advocated for had I known better.
Yeah.
But even in that, like, not just, helping you, but like helping others too, because that helps you even more.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And and just not sitting on it, not saying, "Oh, that's
It'll
I'll just
pass,
let
right?
that go.
Hmm.
That'll pass." No, because it will creep up in some other area of your life, and then it will it will just cause even more issues, more
Like,
mentally, more physically, and it's just not worth it. It's definitely deal with it in the moment.
yeah.
Seek counseling if you
Hmm.
have to. Speak to someone if you have to. They might have an open perspective
Yeah.
on how to deal with it, but definitely don't go it alone. Don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, thank you for saying that, and even, you know I really appreciate, so much of, this entire conversation. I appreciate you for being here, and
Thank
really
you.
appreciate, the thoughtfulness, that you have. uh, you can I can tell that you're extremely passionate, um, um, and really care about the field of nursing. Even still, even
Even
with
stepping
your voice,
away.
yeah,
Yeah.
even stepping away. Um, but yeah, this has been extremely helpful. Um, and again, I like how we started. The fact that, or somewhere in the middle, when you said, you wish that people understood that nurses are human. And sometimes you may be dealing with something with a previous patient, or just personally,
Yeah.
that. But you're not robots. You're not a robot.
No, we're not robots,
Yeah.
and we do get sick, and, I feel like that was also another thing. It was like, "You're not allowed to call out sick because 'cause you're not supposed to get sick." And, but yeah, we're humans, and and we are dealing in that field with so much, um, that it's scary sometimes, but yeah, have empathy on us,
Yeah.
just as we are expected to have empathy on, the
Mhm.
patients that we take care of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you
Thank
for
you.
being here. Really enjoyed the conversation. very, and like I said, enlightening. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Follow Depression Proof Your Life on social, just to be able to have conversations like this, to watch conversations, listen, and actually have tools to actually help you with your mental health and actually build mental resilience. So I hope that this has been a helpful conversation. Until next time, have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Depression Proof Your Life Live tonight. If this conversation stirred up heavy emotions for you, reach out for help. Call or text 988 for 24-hour support in the U.S. If you're outside the U.S., look up your local crisis helpline. If you'd like to stay connected with DPYL, make sure to follow and subscribe on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And visit depression-prooflife.com for resources, blogs, and to share your story. Depression Proof Your Life offers workshops and trainings designed to help teams reduce burnout and strengthen resilience. Together, we're building a community of strength, clarity, and resilience. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, healing is possible.